Let us know when we're live, Arvind. And I see we're live.
We are live now. We are live now and everything.
I'm gonna share this to my friends. Holy fucking shit! What is wrong with Facebook? Okay. Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
We are Rich Oak Events.
Gang.
Reggie. What's your name?
All right. So what are we up to today, Reggie?
What are we up to today? We are talking about white supremacy. If you don't know why, you've been asleep for the last week and a half.
Oh my
God. For the last 400 plus years.
400 plus. Everybody's been asleep for the last 400 plus years. If people were awake, we wouldn't be in this position.
Damn right. Where should we fucking start?
Where should we start? I feel like maybe we should start at the original reason that we decided to do this.
Yeah,
because it had nothing to do with police brutality, because that hadn't happened yet. This has been a very long week. So much has happened. But we originally decided to do this talk specifically because of the incident in Central Park, where a white woman specifically said, "I'm going to call the police and tell them that an African-American man is threatening me." And then she proceeds to get on the phone and do this thing where as she talks, she over time gets more and more and more hysterical while nothing's happening to her in real life. And I looked at that and I was like, damn, this man was not recording.
He would have been dead.
He would have been dead. Because if I heard that on the phone, I've been like, damn, this lady is in danger.
Right.
But damn, every white woman needs a fucking Oscar for playing the fucking victim.
Damn right. It's hella funny because they always want to talk about black people playing the fucking victim until it's time to call the cops. And black people play, we're not calling the cops, we're actually going to handle this situation. And white people are just like, this Negro is threatening me.
And it's
specifically white women have played this victim of this big black man is gonna hurt me, specifically for the purpose of getting what they want out of a situation, or I fucked a black man and now I'm gonna go tell my husband that a slave raped me. This is not anything that just started happening. This is a power that white women were raised with.
Even I think
the white woman's role in white supremacy has always been to be the victim. White supremacy, one of the pillars of white supremacy is protecting the white woman. It is part of, and that's part of patriarchy. White supremacy in itself is patriarchy, except for white people, regardless of gender, will always side with whiteness before they side with gender or feminism or LGBT rights. So you see this situation where white women will be complicit in the patriarchy to uphold white supremacy.
Yeah, I think you said it the best. And I don't know if this was a quote that you pulled from someone else or something you came up with, but
I probably pulled it out my ass because I am iconic.
Honestly, a couple of days ago when we were talking about this, you said the only thing more powerful than the white man's dollar is the white woman's tears.
Oh, that's a line from a poem.
Yes, that's what
yeah, but I originally wanted to have this conversation about white supremacy, but specifically about white feminism as an extension of white supremacy, and how if you are white feminism purposefully excludes people of color, it purposefully gatekeeps femininity from anyone who would actively benefit from the protection of feminism. It's just, and it's all like racialized too. Like you see it with Lana Del Rey, where she talks about there needs to be a space for delicate women in feminism, but every non-delicate woman she named was a woman of color, besides Ariana Grande. But like honestly, like
Ariana Grande
is a white woman of color at this point.
Ariana Grande, she is a prime example of utilizing whiteness in whatever way benefits her. Because if you really look at her, she's a great example of this. Because if you look at her start, specifically her skin tone and
on Nickelodeon.
On Nickelodeon, she was so pale. It was clearly intentional. Like, you know, the type of people who don't go out in the sun because they're gonna get darker. She was clearly one of those type of people who purposely made her voice super soft and super feminine and super delicate. And the second it was beneficial for her to adapt this Black persona and basically commodify Blackness in whatever way she thought she was doing. And in a lot of ways succeeded. As far as the public eye goes, people be surprised that she's
white.
It goes down to even like what she allows people to describe her as. Her name is Ariana Grande. That's how you pronounce her name.
Ariana Grande.
But she does not correct people when people say Ariana Grande. Like she purposefully ignores the fact that people are pronouncing her name wrong, which the mispronunciation of her name gives her more credibility in POC spaces because she now looks and sounds like us. So like, I'm not surprised when people are like, Ariana Grande is white.
Right, it's the same.
Did everything to convince us that she wasn't.
The Kim Kardashians, because they all the same one.
It's the same thing with Rachel fucking Dolezal.
God fucking damn.
People adopt Blackness like white people adopt Blackness like they like to adopt Black kids.
Yeah, it's
like literally just about to say
like you got Sarah McLachlan in the arms of the angels every time
Except with our culture.
Braids game.
But like that was what we originally were trying to talk about. Right now, that situation seems so small in comparison to what's going on in the country, but at the same time connected.
Yes.
Because like, how easily could we have been rioting because of Central Park instead of Minneapolis?
Like, what if that white woman put that shit in Minneapolis instead of in New York?
What if there wasn't a recording? Like, you know, there's so many things where it's like
other people saying this white woman is fucking crazy.
No, and you know why they're saying this white woman's fucking crazy? And the only reason why this nigga has any type of credibility right now, because you know how they treat niggas when niggas are victims, no matter whether or not we have a video. The only reason why that nigga is getting so much clout for that is because he's famous. He's an editor. He's the former editor from Marvel. He's like he's the forefront for queer representation within comics.
I will say this though.
The reason why nobody's shitting on him right now, because they put.
I will say this though. The dog put in motherfucking work for us.
For the culture, look, if anybody knows who that dog is, send them my way. I got some treats. I got a dog bowl and a leash and good ownership waiting for the little nigga, because you did it for the culture.
Right?
And this came to mind because it's been on my mind for the past couple of days. An aspect of white supremacy that is frequently jumped over when we talk about it is as non-Black POC's role within that. And I'm going to use this time to talk about specifically Asian communities, because to my knowledge, there is not a single community of Asian folk who, A, actually like Black people, and B, aren't adopting Black culture, and C, saying nigga. There's not an entire Asian community that follows all three of those things.
I mean, my biggest problem with all of this in non-Black communities is how much they demand from us in allyship and how little they give. You can't ask me to advocate. I feel really upset that I was advocating for Asian folks when racism was happening because of coronavirus, and when my people are being shot dead in the streets. Y'all got blamed for a virus. We're getting murdered, and like there's nothing anyone. There's not a large I'm not seeing as much.
It's not even that there's like a large, especially like speaking about the Asian community, it's not even that there's a large sense of complacency. There's an active disrespect to the movement that's going on right now. Do you know how many times I've seen arguments about the LA race riots?
First of all, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. There's also
something that comes up in the LA race riots as far as the Asian, particularly Korean communities, is those race riots started because a 15-year-old girl was shot in the back of her head for supposedly stealing.
And this is what we need to start understanding as what y'all need to understand as non-Black people is that one, you are not a judge, a jury, or an executioner. You do not, and I do mean do not, get to decide who lives or dies. That goes for all people, but especially when it comes to Black lives. You cannot be sitting in a country that was built, the only reason this country is survived to this day is because of the money made off of the continuing legacy of slave labor.
And if it wasn't directly because of the money made for slave labor, it was the money lost from the ending of slave labor. For example, the only reason why the United States had an industrial revolution, which was 100 years later than the rest of the world, was because niggas stopped picking cotton for free. Everything.
Machines do it.
Technological advancements were only made because niggas stopped doing shit for free.
It's amazing how much we've given to this country. We'll pick your cotton, and then when we say no, we'll build something to pick your fucking cotton.
Right.
Mm-hmm. How do we go from it's so fucking wild, to think that y'all gonna call Black people lazy because we stopped working for free, but we gave you shit to continue doing that work. The cotton fucking gin, we're just sitting here giving to this country, and then we get nothing in return. And then stuff like Minneapolis happens, where we are actively murdered despite the contributions that we've given to this society. And honestly speaking, I don't give a fuck how good or terrible George Floyd was. I don't care what he was doing in his life. I don't care what kind of dirt you can dig up on him. I don't give a fuck.
Look, all I'm saying is
a cop doesn't decide who lives or dies. Who gave them that right?
I feel like if you can dig up that much dirt on a nigga, you can arrest him and convict him of a crime. You do not need an extrajudicial execution if you can dig up dirt on a nigga.
It's I was and here's the thing, I'm a part of this really great fellowship with the Afro Urban Society. Shout out to them. Called the Onye Ozi Fellowship, where it's Black Americans and continental Africans talking about our relationship and really trying to heal that rift that's been created between us because of white supremacy and because of the transatlantic slave trade and 500 years of oppression and separation from our homeland and our people, which, I don't know, fucks up a kid a little. But yesterday we had a meeting, and I'm not going to talk about specifically what people said, but one of the larger topics came about the difference in policing in the United States and abroad. We were talking about how you go to Africa and all the police are Black. You might fuck around, a police ask you your last name, and you find out you cousins.
Right.
But out here, you encounter the police, and it's there is an impending sense of doom every time I see a cop walk my way. Because that's a cop in and of itself in my neighborhood is a death threat. Yes. If a cop can shoot me in my home, on the street, in church, whilst walking, like in my car, while doing nothing at all.
Eating cereal.
When we call them,
Eating cereal, sleeping in my bed as an award-winning EMT, because we're not talking about Breonna Taylor. You know, like it's frustrating.
Infants shot in their bed because the police raided the wrong house and ran in shooting. Now
It's not even raided the wrong house. Raided the wrong house, looking for the wrong person who had already been arrested 10 hours later, before. Like, what the fuck? Like, we're sitting in this time where it's not
with the Black family.
It's not safe to be Black and around white people. It's not. Like, every time like we get around y'all, it's like y'all actively, it's not even accidentally, actively and purposefully put our lives in danger, because y'all know what the police do to us. You know what the police do to us, because it's been like, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 years since Ferguson.
And you know how we know they know what the police is doing? And you know what? That's where Amy Cooper really fucked up. This is where she fucked up. She didn't just fuck up for herself. She fucked up for all y'all racist motherfuckers. Because she straight up said, I'm going to call the police and tell them that a Black man is threatening my life. That means you called the police with the intention of them coming out there to shoot. You knew what you were doing. You knew why you called the police. You knew what they would do when they got there. So all y'all motherfuckers, when you calling the police on Black people for no reason, it is not for your safety. It is to compromise the safety of the person you're calling the police on. And you know this, which is why you called the police.
Okay,
And then to have the unmitigated gall to sit there and tell him to his face, like, I'm gonna call the cops and tell them a large African-American man is threatening my life. Like, the performance was amazing. And I'm just like,
I need some of that for my poetry, honestly.
right. Like, I need that energy on stage.
So here's a comment. Neil Daniel from Twitter says, why you want white women, then yeah, whatever. And I'm like, first of all, that's not a sentence.
Oh, my dick.
Second of all,
lots of race.
I don't fuck white women. I like the white girl once since this Grace, she called me a nigger. So you can keep your women. They're racist as hell.
First of all, they can't keep their women, which is why they're mad.
So you're actually less mad that Black people like white women and more mad that white women
like Black people. Like Black dick. That's the thing. First of all, let me tell you something. As a queer person of color, and as somebody who has had sex with many people of many different races, if you want white women to stop fucking Black people, fuck better than us. It's that simple. It's that simple. Missionary position is not a position, it's a disgrace. You know, like this boring ass sex y'all are having, like, you know, maybe also maybe not exoticize Black people, you know. Maybe white girls will stop using Black dick as a rebellion against their parents if their parents weren't racist.
Period. Maybe because here's my thing. There are a specific group of Black men who only date white women, and here's my
they're not Black men, they're African American.
No,
them's your folks.
The way I see it, if you don't fuck with Black women, that means, and you're Black, you don't fuck with your mother. As a Black woman, I don't even have the desire to tell you to have that conversation with you. Like, oh, that's the type of Negro you are.
I see a Monica Martinez post. Shout out to Monica. Like, dead ass, my day one nigga. Dead ass. Like, best friends since we were fucking 4. Like.
No, earlier than that, since it was like 2, 3. I got a question for Neil though. Did your girl leave you for a dark-skinned nigga with a do-rag named Tyrone? Cause like, I feel for you. I feel for you. You know, it's always a dark-skinned nigga named Tyrone doing some shit.
Tyrone be fucking up our shit too. Like, like let's be honest. But
girl too.
this weird idea that like,
But here I am, not blaming the entire race of Black people for it. So, step your game up or step out.
yeah, I think
maybe you should try
people like Neil
masturbating at
need
this
to
point.
understand that your white women don't need protection from things that they are actively seeking out. They're actively seeking out Black dick. They're actively seeking out to have mixed babies. They are actively exotifying and commodifying our community. Y'all need to have a conversation with them. Talk to your white women. Like, stop talking to us about like, oh, why are white women always fucking Black men? Like, we need to keep our women safe. We need to keep our community pure. Like, maybe you should talk to white women then. I ain't got shit to do. Like, I can't fuck nobody without consent. So, I don't know about, like, I'm not gonna speak for the rest of niggas, but I'm just gonna say, like, ain't nobody I've ever had sex with, like, I didn't have active and continuing consent with. So you can't tell me that your women not wanting you is my fault.
It sounds like
And another thing,
Have
this
you tried being better than me?
started about where white women got Black America fucked up. And so I feel like that just goes right back to the pre-police brutality conversation we started with of the white woman is the devil.
Speaking of that, you don't want to hear a fucking poem?
Yes.
So background on this, I wrote this poem like a long time ago. And like it was one of my like flagship slam poems, and then like I actually got good. I was like, this poem is terrible. So let me like rewrite it. And it took me like 3 years to rewrite it. But I rewrote it directly after the incident with Amy Cooper. Because I think one thing that's really important to understand is that Amy Cooper was not a Republican. She was not a conservative. She was a liberal. And what white people don't understand is that white supremacy is as central to Democrats as it is to Republicans. It is like you see Obama abandon the Black community when he became president. Like he didn't do shit for us because white supremacy has always been upheld in our democracy before Black lives, across party lines. There are very few political entities that have prioritized Black folks over white supremacy, if any at all. So it's really important to understand that. But this poem is called "The Devil is a White Woman."
I love this poem. It's a remix.
The devil is a white woman with a pussy hat and a safety pin. Is a Black power fist whitewashed pink. Is the click clack of designer heels ready to gentrify a neighborhood. She walks into the hood and sees her next meal. Opens her mouth and the family home disappears down her throat. Coughs up a lynching or a slave ship. Allyship is a whip small enough to fit in her hands without breaking a nail. Is the quiet hiss of her tongue before the conquest of her fangs. White women display a safety pin to say they can help, but draw more blood than their community work can save. Call them out, and they will weaponize fragility like they were made out of shrapnel. The only thing more powerful than a white man's dollar is a white woman's tears. How they love Black dick, but be quick to throw us under the bus when massa come looking for them. Ask what happened, and white women say we whistled, or looked the wrong way, and steal the breath from our lungs just as much as the noose did. White men are evil, but white women are insidious, are the Trojan horse to every Black movement. White women have always inserted themselves into our spaces. White supremacy, forgetting itself in more feminine hands, says we can trust it, then goes home to raise and love the men that will murder our children. COINTELPRO is Karen's middle name. Deception is a white woman's favorite tactic. She didn't form the angry mob, but she stitched the hoods. She drenched the cross in oil. She warmed the tar and plucked the feathers. White women didn't assault the protest, but they fed the dogs. They called the pigs back home for supper. They wiped the batons clean of our blood and mounted them above the fireplaces. Behind every white man, there's a white woman with a pussy hat and a safety pin smiling wide enough to flash the venom hidden behind her teeth. White women have never been better than white men. They have always been so much worse.
Mm.
And I think that's my feelings about white women. Like, it oftentimes, because of womanhood and feminism and feminist activism, white women get this pass and get this get these like free passes to fuck up within our community with no accountability. It's like, oh, you know, Ashley was really just trying. You know, she was really trying. And it's like, yes, but like she was trying from a lens of white supremacy.
Can we talk about Ashley trying though? Can we really rewind back?
Can we talk about Ashley?
Because let's look at the history of feminism, since that's really what gives white women that credit. Let's look at that, right? So the feminist movement starts, Black women are the loudest, Black women's words carry the most weight. Black women hold the conferences and the speeches until the amount of Black men who don't show up because the Black women are the ones speaking becomes a problem. So they banish the Black women from the feminist spaces. They basically parrot the Black women's words, as they still do to this day, as they still attempt to take on a Black woman's persona.
Can we talk about how the women's suffrage movement was?
That was her first property. So even going back as far as, you know, Black women's or white women's active role in slavery, they weren't just lying about being raped and getting jealous of.
They were beating niggas.
They were
owning niggas. They were purchasing slaves.
That was the only property they could legally own was a slave. And you don't think they value that power?
Monica coming in with the quotes again.
I love her. Can we just say shout out to Monica with the critical race theory?
Yes. So the quote says, white women's tears in cross-racial interactions are problematic for several reasons. There's a long historical backdrop of Black men being tortured and murdered because of a white woman's distress. Cheers trigger the terrorism of this history, and that comes from Robin DiAngelo.
Wow.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because like really, like the most heinous forms of like anti-Black terrorism have been because of white women. Let's talk about Emmett Till.
Let's talk about
that woman is still alive today. That woman does not have any charges, does not have is still living her life. Like, she probably does not give a fuck about what's going on. You know, like, she's fine. She's fine. And there was, like, she lied and said, this little boy, because let's reframe the way we talk about this. This was not a Black man. This was not a Black teen. This was a little fucking boy. Like,
school when we learned about it, and Emmett Till was the age of my younger brother when he died.
Like, that's like fucking ridiculous. That like he was like 14.
Uh-huh.
That's a little fucking boy. I don't know about you, but like when I was 14, I wasn't grown, and I wasn't capable of making grown decisions.
They painted I believe it was Tamir Rice.
Tamir Rice was 12 years old, and they painted him as a grown-ass man.
Grown-ass man, and this was a child, like not even a teenager. What was he, 8, 9?
Blackness automatically ages you. Personally speaking, I was 19 in nonprofit sectors, and people thought I was 25. Actively thought I was 25. That is a symptom of white supremacy. I was not allowed to be 19. I don't look 25. I never looked 25. Like, shit, like the only thing that makes me look my age is my beard, and I didn't have one at 19. So like I looked at 19, like if I showed you pictures at 19, I looked 14. And I was painted as a 25-year-old in every space that I walked in, including Black spaces, especially Black spaces. It's a coping mechanism to never let our kids have a childhood, because the moment they are grown enough to talk, they are a threat. They are grown enough to try as an adult. The moment you are grown enough to try as an adult, you're not a kid anymore. And like white kids don't get tried as an adult until 17, 18. There are 12, 13, 14-year-old black kids that get tried as an adult. What the hell?
Called a child. We talk about quote unquote boys will be boys, white boys, and not acknowledge that that was a grown ass man that shot up a church. That was a grown ass man that started.
They are grown enough to try as an adult. The moment you are grown enough, so there's hella echo.
Whoops.
It's all good. But like, yeah, like it's one of those situations where it's like black folks are not allowed to be children. I mean, even like outside of a racist connotation, even like looking at black family structure and how black girls are oftentimes forced to grow up a lot quicker in order to take care of the rest of the family. It's like just everything about being oppressed in this country forces you to grow up. I got into activism at 18, fresh out of high school. Like that was like, even in high school, I was into activism, but like after high school, that's like when I got into the nonprofit sector. That's when I got into activism, community organizing, cultural curating. And like, that's something like people my age are not supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be out at the club getting drunk as fuck and not caring about anything. Like that's what white people get to do. White people get to go to fucking Chico State and party all day and like have those frat bros, and like white people get to like white men specifically get to rape people with no worries, and I can't even live my life without anxiety. Like I can't go to the bathroom without anxiety. Like it's amazing what white men specifically, and white women, but specifically white men, are allowed to get away with. And black folks can't even be children. It's like a white man can be a rapist, but black folks can't even be children. Like what the hell? Like we're constantly like, and that's part of dehumanization. Like
something that gets glossed over in the history of white supremacy, in the history of America, the youngest person to be electrocuted.
George Stinney, he was 12, he was electrocuted in the state of Texas.
For supposedly murdering these two white women, white girls, I guess.
White women. If a 12-year-old boy is a black man, then a 12-year-old girl is a white woman.
Period.
Oh my God, Monica with the quotes.
And it's like not only was he electrocuted, but he wasn't allowed to see his mother from the time he was arrested. There were like so many levels of the torture and trauma that he was forced to go through even before, like from the moment they decided to blame him, because I don't understand how something that frequently happens is that we paint this picture of they thought that he did it, or they thought this happened.
No, they didn't.
I don't feel like there's even any necessarily belief.
I mean, it's just like, even if you thought that people did things like that, like, it's like the amazing thing is like the justification, like, even like, let's talk about like outside of like the injustice system, because there is no justice for Black people in this system. But like even outside of that, like lynchings, like the justifications for the murder, the extrajudicial killing of Black people is very small. They said Emmett Till whistled, and that's why he deserved to die. People looked the wrong way. Rosewood was bombed because we were building generational wealth for ourselves. Like there has never been a justification for Black murder. There's never been a valid justification for Black murder. And they've never needed one. Here's a comment. Guyon Prince, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Just want to say that I'm a white male progressive English teacher who lives in one of the most conservative areas in the Texas Panhandle. I'm tuning in to listen to y'all. I don't have shit to say. I'm just here to listen and try to figure out how to help. The first thing y'all can do to help, like honestly, as white people, is to talk to your racist family members, and if they don't change, kill them. I'm gonna be completely honest. Those people are a liability. Those people are a liability to my physical safety at all times. It is time for us to stop being peaceful with inherently violent people. The N-word is inherently violent. Racism is inherently violent. It leads to violent death of Black Americans. And until we stop seeing racists as peaceful, because they're not peaceful. You know, like Trump just called, you know, all of his supporters to rally and protest. Who do you think is going to like talk about it? There is still lynching in the South. Yes, there is still lynching in the South. Aretha Grayson said that there is still lynching in the South. There's still lynching everywhere. The idea that lynching has gone away is completely ridiculous because white people ain't gone away, because white supremacy hasn't gone away. Like, because if we're being completely honest, both Black people and white people have living generations from the civil rights movement and before.
Exactly. And the thing is, about those generations, both communities have been doing the exact same thing over this past time. What I have learned about the civil rights movement, I have taken into my activism now. What do you think racist people who are on the other side of the fire hose taught their kids? And what are their kids teaching their children and their children? So we have to look at this from the perspective of just because we think, like, we didn't kill off all the races. We ended institutionalized racism to a point.
We didn't even end institutionalized racism. We scaled back institutionalized slavery, and that is
even necessarily true, because we still have slavery. We watered it down. We scaled it back.
I didn't say get rid of it. We scaled it back. We was like, we're not gonna call it slavery, and we're not gonna put that many niggas. Like, we're not gonna put all the niggas.
If it's all niggas, then it's obviously racist. It's obviously slavery. But even if we just if we just label them as criminals and arrest them, then all of a sudden we still have that slave labor, because that's what prison is. Prison is a business.
I think what's even like something to mention is that there are more Black men in prison right now than the entire slave population at 1850. Wow. It's not even that they said, oh, we can't have that many people in slavery. It's like, we want more.
We want more, and we want you to shut the fuck up about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy. It's easy to do anything if they label you illegal.
Yeah.
It is easy to do anything to somebody that is a criminal.
In a way, this is even worse. The justifications for this slavery is even worse, because when you look at Chateau slavery, the justification was these people are inferior. Now it's come to the point of they are enslaved because it is their fault. They deserve to be enslaved, not, oh, we need, they're savages, they need to be civilized. It's, no, we know this is
these nuts, nigga.
And they deserve it. They thought like slavery was supposed to be the best treatment you could give a nigga. Like that's the difference between slavery and prison. Slavery was the best treatment that niggas deserved. Prison is a treatment that you believe is only deserved for the worst in society. And it is their fault that they get it. It's not, oh, this is the laws of nature. This is you're just you don't deserve life.
Yeah, and like that's
chance. Because if you think about like the so-called justice system, it's supposed to be a way to
funnel people back into the prison system.
Right, it's supposed to be making conductive members of society, but instead, things that happen, you learn how to do more crimes. You need to do those crimes because you can't get a job. You're actively sought out by police, and being around them can send you back to jail. The trauma, the PTSD.
I mean, it's just even to the point where, like, I have this unique experience of one of my mentors growing up was a correctional officer. Like, and like, even he complained about how desensitized everybody was to the bullshit that they were saying. Like, he was talking about how two of his coworkers got into a fight because police are so desensitized to death, destruction, grief, that one officer made a joke about the recent death of another officer's family member. And they got into a physical altercation. So it's like the violence that happens with police is not just between us and them. It's between each other. They don't fucking like each other at this point. It's like y'all are legitimately taught the only thing you are allowed to do is hurt people. That's the only thing you are taught. Is like, police are not taught to de-escalate. Police are not taught to handle mental health crisis. The only thing they are taught is if that nigga's coming at you, you shoot him in the fucking face. If that nigga's running away, you shoot him in the fucking back.
And the word nigga is important here. Because
police officers there are police stations with only Black targets for their gun ranges.
Wow.
Like, it's been apparent that, like, they know who they're out here to shoot. Niggas is important.
It's just like really wild, like speaking of just how geared police stations are to kill Black folks. What makes this shit really wild about what happened in Minneapolis is seeing police departments like Oakland, specifically, where I live now, condemning that shooting. Fun fact, Oakland Police Department is number 3 in the nation for shooting Black men. And they have
like, when they talked, I was like, shut your stupid ass up.
Those who are experts, who are statistically experts at killing niggas, we're just like, that nigga should have lived. What type of shit do you have to be on to look for a murderer to look you in the eye and say, hey, that's not a murder that should have happened?
Arletha Grayson commented, our brains was compared to monkeys. Yes, let's talk about this, because there is a connection to the scientific examination of Black people and institutionalized racism. People have used racism to back up science. People have used science to back up racism, and all of it was lies. Like the fact that scientific racism doesn't just extend to like using science to justify lies about the Black community. It's also been used, like half of the medical advances have been because of illegal and unethical experimentation on Black people, specifically Black women. Like, has anybody heard of Henrietta Lacks?
And it's things like this that—
Can we talk about that though? Because like, we can't just say we've heard of it, because the whole reason we're having this talk is because they don't know.
Right. So part of her story is she went into the doctor for a procedure and they took some of her cells. They took some of her cells, they took some of her DNA without her permission, and then used that for advances in medical science. They are called, I forget the name of the cells that they use. They're still being used. They are still being used and studied in medical science to this day. Because of like, and like, that seems so small to say, you went to the doctor and someone so cells. That seems so small to like, if you are people that has never had your, like, everything taken from you. They're cancer cells. So it's like, so it's one of those situations where it's like, it's down to the fact that we can't even go to the doctor for routine procedures without fear that our body, our livelihood, our Blackness is still going to be, like, it's going to be stolen. They're still being reproduced and used.
And it's things like this happening, which is why there are so many different conspiracies in the Black community every time there's some kind of scientific advancement. That's why niggas don't trust 5G. I'm not saying that those folks with the conspiracies are right, but those fears come from a place of trauma where our bodies have always been experimented on. So every time something new scientific comes out, niggas are just like, hold up.
How did that actually happen?
Exactly.
Because here's the thing, when these advancements were made, it wasn't openly discussed. To this day, as a Black woman, I'm actually afraid to have a child in a hospital. Some things that they will do to you are to sterilize you, make it to where your next pregnancy will be so uncomfortable. You will want to get like the things you can't, as a Black woman, my mother can't go to a doctor with a diagnosis and say my pain is so bad, I need help, and then take her seriously.
It's wild. Like my mother, even it extends even to like within the Black community. Like my mother growing up, she always had like stomach pains, complained about spicy food. And like, I thought she was crazy. I was like, Mom, you're fucking tripping. I can't remember what year it was, 2013, something like that. She went to the hospital because of her pain. They found thousands of gallstones. Thousands of gallstones. Her gallbladder was ready to burst, and it had been like that for gallstones don't form like quickly. It's a very slow process, and the amount of gallstones she had to like have started since before I was born. So like we're talking about my entire life, my mom is complaining about this pain and complaining about this pain and complaining about this pain. That's like at that point, that was like 15, 16 years. I heard her complain about this pain. And I didn't believe it because medical racism and internalized medical racism. And it turns out my mother like could have been on death's door in a couple days had she not gone to the hospital and pressed to be seen and to be heard. Like I've seen pictures of the gallbladder when they removed it and like the amount of stone. There was more stones than gallbladder. There was no gallbladder. It was a sack filled with gallstones.
So Arlita Grayson says, my old doctor lost my blood. And
how the fuck?
Right. And so it reminds me of another story with our mother. It was a couple months ago. I had visited my mom. She had just gotten out the hospital because she was really sick. Actually, her doctors want her to come back in because they thought she might have gotten coronavirus in like January or February rather than in March. When niggas, January. Yeah, it was January.
It was January and February because she was sick multiple times.
Yes. But I had visited and she said she had just gotten back from the doctor's office for some blood tests. I'm like, oh, what did they do the blood test for? And she said, I don't know. They wouldn't tell me. I'm just like, hold the fuck up. You have every right to know why they're pulling shit out your body.
That's actually fucking illegal. That's actually literally illegal.
And so like I had to press to my mom, and there's things that she didn't know. Like she didn't know about the cancer stuff. She didn't know about how a lot of advancements in gynecology were because of the experimentations on Black women. And that history.
Let's talk about this. It wasn't just experimentation on Black women. It's experimentation on Black women slaves. So it was like, it's another level of power dynamics where it wasn't somebody like going into a clinic and saying, I need help, and then them stealing something. It was saying, you're going to give us this shit because I own you. You're going to endure this shit because I'm in charge. It was such a power dynamic. And this man is still praised as the father of modern gynecology. No, he's the father of modern institutionalized misogynoir. But we're not ready for that conversation. Wow. We're not ready to talk about how modern healthcare was literally built on the backs of Black women in this country and across the world.
And Black women don't necessarily reap any of the, I don't want to say any, but overall, the overarching thing is Black women don't get the support.
Because there's still medical racism.
But
it's like you get all of your medical advances from Black women, and then you exclude them from the medical progress.
It's to the extent that I went into the hospital to find out if I was pregnant, and they told me I had an abortion. The doctor didn't tell me, it was the nurse. She told me in the waiting room. She told me to where the whole waiting room heard that I had just had an abortion or a miscarriage. The paperwork said that I received medication I didn't get. I Googled the medication they said I got. It's to make sure that the lining of your uterus and your womb is actually okay. That's something that they would have found out from the father of modern gynecology started that, right? So not only is that something that started from them stripping Black women of their bodies, we don't get the treatment that we need.
The treatment that y'all literally created. Like, it's absolutely wild. Somebody brought up Sarah Bartman. For those of you who don't know, Sarah Bartman is or was a Black woman who was like put on display like a circus animal almost, because of exotic features. And afterwards, a lot of her body parts were sold to scientists, and some of her reproductive organs are still on display in museums.
Wow.
So, you know, it's not like when we talk about racism and we talk about these things, it's never an isolated incident. It is one incident and a legacy of white supremacy. Is a hundreds, if not thousands, of year-long legacy of white folks not giving a fuck about Black lives. And the more vulnerable you are in the Black communities, that we're talking about Black femmes, like Black trans women being murdered at higher rates than literally anybody else, despite being like having, like, you look at Black trans women's proportion, like, of the population, and then how many people get murdered, and it's like, wow, it's fucking ridiculous. It is fucking ridiculous. And those names get forgotten, those names get ignored, because the most vulnerable members of the Black community are the last to be included in liberation. And the people and the least vulnerable members of our community don't have liberation yet. That's the wild shit. It's like, if the heterosexual Black man is fighting for rights, what do you think about the queer trans Black woman? Like, what the fuck? Like, like how? It's just like, it's one instance of like, this is not, like, this is a legacy. This is America's legacy. America's legacy, America's inheritance, America's what we will pass down to our kids is racism, is anti-Blackness, is white supremacy, is violence, is genocide. Like, that's what it is. There's nothing else to America but the killing of our people. You know, they killed the natives, they killed the Black people, enslaved us, brought us here, and then when they realized they couldn't keep killing people here and still have an economy, guess what they did? They built the largest military on the planet and went to other places to kill brown people. Notice how America hasn't fought a white country since World War II.
Let's talk about the fact that, first of all, I never thought about that. Like, you said it, and I started talking before I fully registered.
Question. Why did we jump into World War II, though? To fight the Japanese. So can you really say that? Just because we fought some Germans too?
Fiona Manzella says, also shout out to Fiona, one of our patrons. RE, y'all's points on pain. Half of white medical trainees believe such myths as Black people have thicker skin or less sensitive nerve endings than white people, and that is from this fucking year. Like, that's the wild shit. It's like, no, Black people don't experience less pain. Black people don't have less nerve endings. We are either not speaking or not being heard, and it's because we have been trained to ignore it. And
like,
y'all have been trained to ignore us.
That institutional or that internalized medical racism is so deep that when my mom's when my mom had appendicitis, she got to the hospital and they hooked her up to the morphine right as her appendix was rupturing. She thought she was overreacting to how bad the pain was. She thought it was something else. She did not. It wasn't until the pain was gone that she was able to sit back and really acknowledge, like,
damn, I really went through that shit.
Let's talk about that.
Like that, I think, and that's such a common thing. Black people don't get help, and if we do, it is only when we are on the brink of death. Like, think about it. Your mother only got help when her appendix ruptured. My mother only got help when her gallbladder was on the brink of rupturing and she couldn't even move. Like,
it was days from rupturing.
You know, like, even to the point where, like, even how we raise our kids, like, Collin broke his fucking arm and our mom didn't take him to the hospital for 3 days. Didn't even take him to the hospital. Our grandmother was like, it's been 3 days and you complaining to this shit, we're going to the doctor. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, even within us, we overestimate how good we are. Like, we're not. It's okay for us not to be good. But a lot of that fear comes with, I don't want to go to the fucking doctor. Like, you know, it's so fucking ridiculous where it's just like, I don't know, like last time I went to the doctor, like, it was just like, it was an in and out thing. Like, I scheduled a full physical and it was completed in 15 minutes. I don't understand that, first of all. You know, it's like, you know, recommendation for like blood work. I asked for blood work to be done because, like, you know, like, I'm showing symptoms of like either anemia or iron deficiency. Like, you know, sickle cell is common in Black people, shit. And, you know, it's these things where it's like, you know, we have this knowledge of like, oh, these diseases are common in Black people, but then we don't want to test for them. We don't want to treat them. So it's like, at what point does the medical field look at itself and say, we don't give a fuck about niggas? Only what they can do for us. Because they'll be quick to ask me to donate organs or donate blood, but they won't be quick to ask, do you need blood work done? Do you need these tests? Like, how are you feeling? You know, I walk into the doctor and they're like, you look fine, you look healthy. I'm like, you ain't even checked my heart rate yet. I smoke 4 blunts a day. Like, you know, my lung capacity ain't shit.
I remember this was like November, when I was like borderline about to have a mental breakdown because that's a whole other thing. More internalized racism is the short story, but the psychologist that I finally got to talk to, because I went to several before I could have like a regular one. When I was telling her what I was going through and shit, she did not initially believe that it was severe enough that I needed to not go to work. As she was telling me why she didn't think it was severe enough, I started having a panic attack. And that's when she was like, I'll give you the recommendation.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, shout out to Jordan Wilson, who just donated $5 a month via Patreon. I think now is a good time ever to plug that. If you want to see more conversations like this, support what we're doing with our org, Rich Oak Events. Check us out on patreon.com/Rich Oak Events. It's a really good way to support us, the work that we're doing in the community. You can donate as little as $2 a month. You can go all the way up to $100 a month. Different tiers help us do different things. For example, our $100 a month tiers allows us to support the Allen Bluford Center, one of our—
Actually, specifically that $100 a month tier, yeah. Every white person that's looking at this stream, you have $100 a month to spend. I need you to support us at $100 a month to support the Alan Bluford Center for Justice. The Alan Bluford Center for Justice is an anti-police brutality community center based in Oakland. Given these times, it is paramount now more than ever for you to put your money where your mouth is. If you believe Black Lives Matter, if you believe all cops are bastards, if you believe that there needs to be systemic change in the way the justice system interacts with Black communities, then you need to support the community spaces that are making the activism that you are seeing in the streets happen. Like, I don't know about you, but like I've been seeing Molly in the streets like over the years, and like the work that the Alan Bluford Center has done over since 2014 is so important to the community. The amount of people that have come through that space and lived and learned and had community to carry and love them is important, because it's not just about fighting police brutality, but taking care of the community that's affected by it. So I challenge each and every one of you, be uncomfortable, because racism is uncomfortable as hell. Be uncomfortable and donate that $100 a month. Every single penny of that goes straight to the Alan Bluford Center, making sure that it stays running, making sure that it stays funded, and making sure that community centers like it stay open to the public. Especially now during coronavirus, where Alan Bluford Center isn't even having events right now. So it's really important that you support. But like, really, it's time we put our money where our mouth is. Monica says, I point out that the viewers dropped when you started making your call to action, Reggie. And that is because allyship is mostly spiritual. It is for you. When you tell me I'm an ally, I know it's for you to make yourself feel better. Because if you were doing something, you wouldn't have to tell me shit. So
earlier there was a question of what can white people do to help? Some things that white people love to let Black people tell white people why they're racist. White people love to ask you to tell them why they need to know. And I feel like that's white people's job. There are enough white people who know what the fuck is going on and who parent Black people enough already to go do that work for us. That's not our responsibility. We did not invent racism. Y'all did. Y'all take care of that. And the other thing is to put money into these spaces. Like, do that $100 a month pledge to the Alan Bluford Center, and then go donate to those causes out in Minneapolis. I know the map. Give your money to as many Black spaces as possible. Give your money to Black people just because they deserve it.
I just checked out the live stream, and we went from like 15 to 20 viewers down to 6. I'm just gonna go ahead on good faith that at least 3 of y'all only left to check out our Patreon. I'm gonna go ahead and tell myself that.
Okay, someone said, I'm white, poor, and my father abandoned me. Also, I have no scholarship for college, and my grandfather died. I don't know how being white helps me at all. Honestly, being white never helps anybody, but being white is not a liability for you. And that is the difference. If I went through that, it was because I was Black. You didn't go through that because you were white. I don't have money for college, despite being one of the smartest motherfuckers you will ever meet, because of generational poverty created from the conditions of slavery and sharecropping, which my family has a history of, and how industries in cities like Richmond abandon Black populations and abandon Black communities, how businesses oftentimes use us for labor, and then when we're not useful, leave. So, like, honestly, like, I understand being poor is hard, but you're not poor because you're white.
Exactly. It's like you're running around poor, but you're not a poor nigger. Sorry.
And not only because here's the thing.
Word.
White.
They said that makes sense.
A lot of racism comes from not necessarily white people, even as they're believing they're better than Black people, but needing that to be true because they're poor and they don't have anything, and only power they have, and then I'm going to go and talk about white men for a second. The only power they have are over their kids, their wife, and if they have a great position in whatever job, they can tell somebody else what to do. I'm talking about my old manager at Target.
But like, let's talk about the condition of whiteness that tells you that you deserve power.
And right. But then they use their position in life and they look at it and they're like, well, at least I'm not a nigger. And then you get a president like Donald Trump and they're like, yeah, we're not niggers, we're not illegals. Fuck those guys, we're amazing, even though we are the bottom barrel of white people, but even that is over the top barrel of black people, right?
Right. So it's like, I'm so glad you said that. Because this is where race and class intersects. Classism, I believe racism came first. Mostly because America didn't have an economy before black people, so what's up? Like, America didn't have an economy for black people, so racism came first. Slavery came first. Then came classism. But I think one of the things that like we really need to acknowledge is that how classism uses racism is by it keeps poor white people complacent because they aren't as bad as the niggas. It's like, you know, I'm not going to talk about how Trump is a billionaire running a country that is refusing to give you
any type of help?
a living wage while also refusing to let you work.
Yeah, it's like we both over here making $9 an hour and you're mad at me because I'm making the same amount as you. And there's a billionaire out here not paying either of us shit. Sorry,
you're working for that billionaire.
Right.
And also, I just want to point out or reiterate the fact that that's exactly where white women's racism is rooted deeply as well. The story is supposedly white women felt bad about slavery, but then she got one. And now she has someone to exercise that power over.
I mean, I think the quote is white feminism is the white woman asking why she cannot own slaves too. It has never been about the liberation of women. It has always been having the power of a white man. And like that's the failing of a lot of activism, is that we're trying to have the power of a white man. And no one should have the power that white men have. No one. Say what you want. Like, I don't think there should be billionaires.
Someone said my supervisor when I was in the military was black and he's more of a role model and friend to me than my father ever was. That's because black people are actually really good at parenting. There's a reason why you wanted black mothers to take care of your kids during slavery. So I hope that because this black person has such an influence in your life, you would not want them to die, because just because they got a military uniform on doesn't mean they're seen as a threat. There are plenty of military and former military black folks who are shot and killed by police because they don't give a fuck. There are black police officers pulled over by people who work in their precinct and they are their get pulled over. Imagine being an officer and get pulled over by your subordinates. They act like they don't know who the fuck you is, and they arrest you anyway just to find out that you're their fucking boss. And the only reason why they didn't trust you is because you were black. So I would hope that you take the knowledge and the resources that we are giving y'all to help out to ensure the safety of the black people that you care about. Because hopefully,
I mean, it's not even just like the black people that you care about. White people like to pick and choose who deserves rights, and I'm tired of that shit. Like, it's time that we accept if Brock Turner can be redeemable, then someone selling loose cigarettes can be redeemable. If we have leniency for the most heinous things, like if the fact that we have sensationalized white serial killers. We have talked about, like, the fact that people are talking about, oh my God, Jeffrey Dahmer is so hot. And then like somebody who like literally did nothing is like is like a criminal and is a monster. It's like, this man ate people. You're fetishizing niggas that ate people. And somebody walking down the street is doing something wrong.
But the 8-year-old deserves to get shot. Okay.
like let's talk about like America's fascination with serial killers and disinterest in Black lives says a lot. Says so much.
Oh, wow. I love that. The doors of a Target on 27th and Broadway were smashed and a fire burned in a dumpster.
That's a good segue. Let's talk about these protests.
Real quick. I do want to talk about this. First of all, let's reframe what we're how we talk about this. These are not riots, these are uprisings. This is a revolution. This is the start to a movement. And like when I say like I don't give a fuck about riots, like I don't give a fuck about like your respectability politics. I mean, I don't give a fuck about your respectability politics. Like, let's be completely honest. The riots didn't break out the first night of protests.
Are we talking about
It took 4 days for them to burn the city down. They waited and waited and waited. Huh?
Because a white officer of the St. Paul Police Department decided it was okay to dress up as a rioter to smash a window of an AutoZone. So even the violence that broke out was a direct result of police interference. The police wanted violence. They wanted to shoot rubber bullets. They wanted to shoot tear gas. What they weren't ready for was the people who were ready to fight and die over this, because we have already died for it without fighting. So what the fuck we look like standing here and just dying?
I think like white America's biggest threat right now is Black America's realization that we literally have nothing left to lose. We have lost our homes. We have lost our freedom. We've lost our culture. We've lost our children. We've lost our names. We've lost our right to breathe. We've lost our right to sleep, our right to walk, our right to live without fear.
We've lost the neighborhoods y'all forced us into
the neighborhoods where we could create some kind of community safety.
And told us to get out.
It's just one of those situations where it's like y'all have taken everything from us, everything. We have nothing left to lose. Like, what are you going to do? Shoot another nigga? You were going to do that anyway. And like, you know, not to say that like death and like injuries and protests are like not tragic, but also just like you have to understand where we're coming from, that like our community is willing to put our lives on the line because our lives been on the line.
And on a global scale, like, here's the thing, America is fucked up, and America is fucked up because of how fucked up it was to Black people for so long. It is built upon a system of oppression. So a lot of, and like this is POC in general, but y'all are also other. So I'm gonna go back to white people. White people can also be oppressed in a way. But that's nowhere near the lightest level of oppression the least POC looking POC person is gonna experience.
I'm poor. Wait, you're just complaining that you're poor?
Right, right.
Like white people complain about classism, we're just like, oh, first time?
A white person in the hood going through the same struggles as the next door, who is, a lot of police see them all the same, but most of them is gonna shoot the nigga first.
And the thing is like honestly, if white oppression was on Pornhub, the video would be called Baby's First Oppression. Baby's first slur, some shit like that.
All I gotta say is like, and just the way that like poor white people or even hood white people are treated in comparison to Black people. Collin, at school, how many people went to jail and were kicked out for selling drugs?
Everybody I know who sold drugs.
Except the white boy.
Oh yeah, he did graduate.
Wow.
White boy graduated selling weed.
Mm-hmm.
And like, not to say that like, you know, don't hustle like that, but also just like the fact that so many Black and brown students like were going to jail, were getting kicked out, suspended, detention for doing something that like
enrichment
white kids were doing freely. Like I went to a white high school for like a year. We got a new $100 patron, Sarah O'Connell. Thank you so much for your support.
We're actually checking out our Patreon.
Yes, thank you so much. It means a lot. You know, it's definitely a first step.
A necessary step.
A necessary step.
I was saying about America being rooted in oppression. The uprising of Black people is the uprising of America. Other people want us in their movement so bad, but won't be in ours, not knowing that our movement is the one that liberates us all. Right? So not only is the systematic racism keeping Black people down, but it's preventing other people from making any type of real progress as
and
well.
You see it in every single movement in the United States being built on the back of a Black movement. Women's suffrage was built on the idea that white women should be able to vote before Black men. And Black men had the legal right to vote at the time. They had the legal right to vote. Was that, did they have the social right? No, because the KKK would show up because of grandfather clauses, because of voter ID laws, because of the racist South. But legally, if you could pass all the hurdles as a Black man, which was impossible, but if you could, for some magical fucking reason, you could vote. And white women didn't like that, even though Black people were not voting because of terrorism. Because let's name this what it is. This is terrorism. This is domestic terrorism. Because what y'all want is fear. You are using fear and violence to control an entire community. Like the fact that my mother asked me not to go to the protests because she was afraid for my life. And like, you know, that's understandable. It's like, you know, like
me to see if I was okay and I wasn't even there.
Right. You know, people were checking up on me like, you know, are you at the protest? And I was like, I didn't go to the protest in Oakland last night because I didn't find out until like 5 hours after the protest that the anonymity of the protest was not a setup. Like, I personally don't like going to protests that like organizations won't put their name behind. Just because of the history, and not even the history, the current infiltration of Black movements by police and white supremacists.
Stopped with the Black Panthers. It did not.
It did not. It did not. Like I said, COINTELPRO is Karen's middle name. You got to check the white people in your organization. You need to figure out where they're from and what they're doing, because and some of the Black people and the non-Black POC, you need to vet your people, because cops don't know where we're organizing for no reason.
Because I feel like we talk a lot about the mixed Black people and the Razor Doll with her name looking people. Because I know Black people who are the color she looked.
Oh, damn.
Right.
But we also need to vet the darkest Idris Elba looking niggas as well. Because
I mean, like, do y'all remember? I don't know if any of y'all are on Twitter.
Was at I don't know where she was going, but she was walking down the street with her friends. Or no, this happened last year. She was walking down the street with her friends, and there was a protest happening. She was not at the protest. She was wearing a wig, her makeup was done, she had on heels, she was dressed up with a group of other femmes who were dressed up. Clearly not a part of the protest, and were just walking next to it to get to where they were trying to be. It was a white cop and a Black cop, and the white cop walks up to her and says, where you been, like basically questioning her like she was at the protest. And she's like, we literally came from this event over there, we're going to a party over there. And the Black cop is like, well, I don't believe you. We need to make a lesson out of her. And this was a Black woman. like at least as black as me, right?
Which is pretty fucking black, might I ask. Like, I'm not looking at you and saying, maybe Char's white.
My color a little bit because Corona.
You should ask my mama if she thinks Char is white.
Your mama wouldn't like me if I was white.
My mama won't admit it. She don't like white people that much. She likes to pretend. I think, but like,
she's had to exist in white spaces so long.
She convinced herself she likes him.
And then
and then she talks, and we're like, Mom, it doesn't sound like you like these people. But like, real talk, like, you know, we talk about like checking our people, and especially like, I'm gonna be honest, like, as like a non-binary femme, like cis black men are the white people of the black community. I can't fucking stand y'all. Like y'all, like it's like Collin says in his Hotep poem, y'all critique heteronormative patriarchal power structures and then use heteronormative patriarchal power structures to reinforce your power within your own community. It's just like, and even just then, like, you know, people just be fucking catfishing us. Like, did y'all ever hear about Emo Black Thought on Twitter? It was this whole ass cisgender heterosexual black man that pretended for years to be a queer black woman, to the point where like he like started a support group, and like black women like were comfortable, like, you know, like sending like putting up like nudes and saying like, should I send this? And like, this is this whole like cis hetero man in these very like black women can be vulnerable, black femmes can be vulnerable spaces, like just eating that shit up. And it was like, it tricked everybody because nobody thought to vet that account. No, like the amount, like, it was just like not all skin folk is kin folk.
Yes, not all skin folk.
Not everybody who looks like you is rooting for you. You gotta vet your own people.
And
but
so
like,
people are really down for the cause. You just gotta vet them and check them because they will fuck up.
Everybody will fuck up. Everybody will fuck up. And our communities need to be better at like honestly checking. Like, I'm tired of like this call-in culture. Like this call-in culture of like saying, you know, what you did was like racially insensitive, and like we want you to like come back to the group. And no, fuck you. What you said was racist as shit, and you need to get your fucking shit together. Like,
and here's the thing, there's so much middle ground for that, but the way that it works is either it's totally okay and you said sorry so you don't have to show any real fucking accountability, or you're totally canceled and that's an unredeemable act. And I'm not gonna say that there aren't some unredeemable
right, because like, let's be honest, like, why
a nigga last year, you can't then hit me up ever again and not expect to get your ass beat or told you need to pay me
again.
Or maybe, you know, if you call me a nigga last year, you can't come up this year and ask me, can you sign up for my open mic? No.
David. Who's still hot about that?
But like, you know, it's just really wild how white supremacy has really infiltrated like every aspect of American society. Like just every aspect. What you smiling at, Collin?
I'm just still low-key like laughing at the audacity of David.
And to think like, just like, imagine like, had we handled that situation differently? Like, say instead of threatening to slap the shit out of him if he said nigga, I just slapped the shit out of him. Imagine what would happen. We might not be having this conversation today.
For two reasons. Either you'd be in jail or that nigga would have learned his lesson.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Our topic for next week. Did we want to? I think our topic was creating safe spaces, creating equitable spaces, and what that means, and how our language needs to change around how we create our spaces, and actually like looking at, we actually do need to start prioritizing people and voices and experiences that are more marginalized. The week after, we are going to be with Ashia Ajani talking about environmental racism and eco-fascism, and how the environmental movement has largely failed the Black community, and people of color in general, but specifically Black communities here in the Bay. So we have a lineup of amazing conversations that we are going to be having.
Also, something to look forward to. We're in the process of taking all the audio from our podcast and creating a SoundCloud or a podcast account. So if you don't want to necessarily just watch our videos, look out for when the audio is available.
Mm-hmm. But like, you know what the wild thing about everything that's going on is? Y'all niggas remember it's the fucking pandemic?
Yes.
I keep forgetting, like, and it's just like, it's wild. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, it really sucks to be Black in the middle of a pandemic in which Black people are overwhelmingly dying from this disease.
Because of
and then on top of that, have an instance of police brutality, and then be expected to show up to work in the morning and to like organize and to like be a part of like all my fellowships and like be a part of whatever board or like whatever project that I was working on. Like literally last night, I was so distressed. Like I downed a bunch of shrooms and dissociated while playing Animal Crossing. And that was the best thing I had done for my mental health. Like, not having conversations, not going to work, not ignoring it, but doing drugs and dissociating. Like, that is how traumatic of an experience like these things are. It's just like, wow, the only thing that helps this is drugs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you wonder why, there's crack in our neighborhoods.
And it's like,
why hella people smoke weed.
But here's the thing, it's like there's drugs and there's this deep spiritual work that Africans, like our DNA, our ancestry, our lineage is so heavily rooted in spiritual religious work, not Christianity, not necessarily those Abrahamic faiths that we've adapted to in this country. And even in Africa because of fucking white supremacy and things. But there's so much disconnect from that, especially here in America, because in Haiti was the first real major, not the first, but the first major slave riot that everyone knew about. Because the last thing they wanted a slave to know was that, the last thing they wanted to know someone they put in slavery to know was that the other people they put in slavery were rioting and winning a lot of the times. But
Nat Turner, the entire country of Haiti.
In Haiti, that revolution was driven so heavily by Shango, by Ogun, by warrior spirits and deities of various African religions, and the combination of them, because these were all people from different countries, from different tribes with different religions. And then in America, when they heard about it, they were like, oh no, we already thought this shit was bad, but now like no, absolutely no African looking spiritual, none of that. That's why Black people are so deep into the church, a mixture of it being forced, because if you can turn someone into a Christian, you can turn them into a slave because of God said so. You can't do that with African cultures because it directly conflicts other things. Lost my thought. But what they did was they stripped it. And to this day, that's been Christian.
Someone said George Soros, Black Lives Matter is a setup from George Soros. Antifa is rioting in the USA. Wake up. I'm going to just say one thing. White supremacy says that only white people are violent in this situation, that it could only be an act of white people that would cause such destruction on such a level. And I say that's white supremacy because you're ignoring the depth of Black rage. You, like, yes, some of the shit that was set on fire was not us, because you can see low-income housing, Black and brown-owned businesses being burned. That's white people. But do not think that we are all out here being peaceful. We are literally in a fight for our lives.
And here's the thing, within the Black community, we need both the I won't be violent by I'm not gonna be the person who's violent. And we need a person who's I'm gonna shoot you in front of your grandmama and your baby if you come at me.
Fun fact, Malcolm X told Coretta Scott King, I did not come here to get in your husband's way. I came here to help his movement. I thought that if we came out here, maybe they would see that Martin Luther King is someone worth listening to. It was all, hey, if we come and tear some shit up, your husband's gonna look better. We came down here to make Martin Luther King look good. And that is what the power of a protest, of a riot of violence is. When you got niggas with guns and knives saying, listen to us or we shoot you, and someone like, hey, we're gonna march down the street, we're gonna be peaceful. It gives a lot of power to that.
What you're seeing is the reversal of big stick diplomacy being used against the United States government and the United States system. Big stick diplomacy is the manner of diplomacy that the United States uses, for those of you who do not know. I do believe it was coined by Roosevelt. He said, speak softly and carry a big stick, which means you need to be eloquent, you need to come with terms, you need to come with an adequate solution, but also we have the largest military in the motherfucking world to back us up. So if you don't agree to this, we'll just bomb you. And that is the tactic that Black Americans are now employing, which is we got people that are peacefully protesting and telling you what we want.
We got people who
don't get that. We got people that will tear shit up and take what we want. And take what we need in order to survive. And you see it in the way that Minneapolis, where a lot of the looted supplies from Target were redistributed into the community, into protesters. That is not acts of random violence. That is coordinated civil disobedience. That is coordinated protest. That is, and we need to get something straight about the necessity of riots and property damage in this. In a system that values capital and property over the lives of Black people, the destruction of capital and property is a form of protest.
And the thing is, something that people love to skip over when we're talking about specifically Black people rioting and protesting and civil disobedience, is this is our right as Americans. Y'all made us Americans, and it's our right to fight for our rights.
It's literally in the Constitution that if we don't like the government, we can overthrow it.
Period.
So, I don't know about y'all, but I have the constitutional right. And honestly, let's be honest, America wouldn't exist if it wasn't for slave labor. So I have every right to burn a country down that my people built for free. I brought this bitch into this world and I can take it the fuck out.
Period.
There's no reason. There's no reason why Black people need to continue contributing to this country. Speaking of which, I don't know if anybody has heard, but on Twitter, there is a call for July 7th to have a national Black boycott, meaning we don't buy shit on July 7th. We don't pay for public transportation. We don't go nowhere. We don't do nothing. We don't pay for anything. We don't give our businesses to anyone who is not Black. And we watch the economy cripple. And we do that as long as we need to, because Black people have $1.3 trillion of buying power in this country. We are the largest consumers in this country. If we just stopped for one day, what would happen?
Continue to stop for as long as it took.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes they don't want to listen for that one day.
Right. But like, you know, if we're going to do a national boycott of the economy, that means we need to get our community together, which means we need to be talking about, like, if I can't go to Safeway for my groceries, where's the Black-owned grocery? Where is the Black-owned community garden? Where's the organization that's providing food for the community? You know, if I can't get medication, like, where is the Black-owned pharmacy? You know, if there's not one, then how do we get one? You know, if there is not, like, if we don't want to go to the bank, where are the Black-owned banks on the West Coast? Because there are none. Like, why don't a Black man own a business in the United States? Look up Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Rosewood riots, and how the first bombing on American soil was from American forces bombing a Black business center. It's because every time we start a Black business, y'all burn it to the ground. The KKK targeted Black business centers, Black businesses, Black business owners, their homes, Black churches, Black institutions have always been destroyed because that is where our power lies, in our gathering places, in our economic centers, in the places where we can communicate and transfer money and transfer wealth, both physical, both monetary and spiritual wealth. So it is never that Black people haven't owned shit. It is that it's always been ripped out of our hands, and don't ever disrespect my community like that.
And here's the thing, Black folks do own businesses. I just got
Baby Fat
from A Million Kisses on Instagram, and it's fire. Right, it's better than a lot of the shit I've seen in stores, and it works on my skin because the shit y'all making doesn't. You have.
Okay, so here's the thing, Frank, because there's you said that I'm not white, so don't assume. I never said you were white. I said don't disrespect my community.
Period.
So you're the only one making assumptions. I never said anything about you. I said what you said was disrespectful to my community.
And talking about,
I don't know who you are. If you're not white, still shut the fuck up and read a book.
Y'all don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Y'all are people who actively speak ill will on the Black community. Some of that is Black people, right?
Some of it is non-Black people of color. You know, it's not just white people talking about Black communities. What do you mean, what community? Bro, can we block this nigga? I don't have actual time for this. It's obvious that this person is not only a racist, a white supremacist, but a sorry ass bitch. Who has no better time than to get on YouTube at 2:43 p.m. and be racist as hell for no reason other than you saw some niggas.
Hey, yo, Arvin, don't send me no more comments from this nigga.
So, goodbye, and I hope you die in a fire.
Probably in one of those riots that was set off real soon.
I have no sympathy for racism anymore. I have no sympathy for racists. Kill your racist grandma.
Like, your kind are the ones who.
Oh, he said dickhead baddie man. I'm just like, did you look in the mirror? Waste man, again, looking in the mirror. This man.
Because I'm gonna be honest, you're the only one. Like, I mean, you can block him, but I have one thing to say before you block him. Do you mind just going out ahead and calling us niggers and getting away with it? Like, just getting it over with? Just call it.
Over here calling
get it over with.
Here's the thing. You coming at people hella sideways, acting hella disrespectful, calling niggas names and shit. But I'm the nigga? No.
Don't make me call you a nigga before you call me one.
Because I will.
Because I will.
Right. The hip hop prophet said, "You hope who dies in a fire." I hope each and every person who bears ill will for the Black community and for Black people dies in a horrible, terrible fire. Preferably one that is started by Black riots.
You know,
I hope right before that happens, everybody they love disowns them for their racism.
Yep. I hope you die alone. Like honestly speaking. You know, like I know this is like supposed to be like really professional and we're supposed to be having this talk, but like honestly speaking, people like you who believe that because of the color of somebody's skin, they do not deserve they do not deserve life. Y'all don't deserve rights. Y'all don't deserve life.
It's not that I don't think you deserve to live. It's that I don't want you working in a position above me. I don't want you being better than me. I don't want you to succeed beyond where I'm succeeding or even match me. And what that means is if you're at the bottom of the barrel, you want me dead. And so this is especially at you people who say, well, I'm not racist because I actually value Black people until stepping on a Black person will get you ahead. Mm-hmm. That was the feminist movement. Mm-hmm. They love Black women until Black men were about to get the right to vote before them. Prophet, and then it was fuck all of y'all.
Prophet, I'm gonna need you to stop after the fool in the comment section. Prophet said, "What's up, my neithers?" Oh man, Prophet's a good friend.
But yeah, it's one of those situations, and like, for full disclosure, I have to leave in like 13 minutes for another meeting. But yeah, it's one of those situations, like, honestly, when we really look at like who, like, I don't believe that you have a right to exist in my space if you don't believe that I have a right to exist, period. That's why people get blocked. That's why people get banned from my show. Because if you don't believe that we have a right to live, period, you don't have a right to live around us and to be around us. And I think it's important, like, as organizers, because this is the problem that I've seen. We're way too afraid to curate our spaces. We're way too afraid to ban people. And you know, it used to be like with slams because, oh, what if they complain to PSI? PSI is dead. There's no fucking excuses. If someone does something racist, like, kick them out of your space. It's about time that we show real fucking consequences, because accountability and a call in can look like you fucked up and you're not allowed around here. That's accountability sometimes. Not every single person who apologizes needs to be let back into the space. Sometimes the consequences of your actions is that you lose access to something.
Reach. And that means even when folks accept your apology, I can forgive you and deny you and completely deny you access to my presence.
The hip hop prophet said Frank Lucas is the worst troll in human history, in the history of humanity. I'm like, yeah, because we're bigger trolls than him.
If you're watching, look, if you're watching over on YouTube and Twitter, because I know that's where the most trolls be. So this is shout out to all our Twitter and YouTube trolls. I spent the better part of like 5 years shit posting.
You're spending the better part of 2020 shit posting.
If y'all think y'all can troll,
you're still shit posting.
I'm still shit posting. So if y'all think y'all can talk shit better than me, you're wrong. I talk shit for a living. I used to get paid to talk shit and then ask other niggas for money. So you got me fucked up if you think y'all can talk shit better than me. So anybody, matter of fact, how about you DM me on Instagram at Cornrow Collin and we can go at it in there and I can post how stupid I make you look. This is a challenge. If y'all want to troll, if y'all really want to troll.
Wait. All lives matter. What about the people in Palestine and Syria? These people are getting fucked up. Yes, free Palestine, free Syria, free Iraq, like all of those countries need freedom from American and Western imperialism. However, that does not justify your anti-Black racism, and you can go suck a dick and die.
Not only that, but people love to bring up everybody else when we're talking about Black people, but nobody brings up Black people when we're talking about
everybody else.
So you can ass.
No. Here's how I feel. Fuck sucking ass, fuck sucking dick, because people like that. And I don't know your life. You can just die. I don't want you to have anything enjoyable that could even be enjoyable.
You're only asking questions, but here's the thing. You can ask questions for the intent to learn and understand or be antagonistic, and that's what you're doing. You're actively attempting to antagonize folks.
You're trying to get me to act outside my character, but I'm a bitch by nature. You was being racist though. I don't get it. When was I racist? This entire conversation. If you don't get it, I'm gonna encourage you to learn how to read and then go and read a book, preferably one written by a Black woman on critical race theory. Critical, CRITICAL, race, RACE, theory, THEORY, critical race theory.
What's paranoid?
Paranoid. You can't.
I know you're from the UK. Our English is a little bit different, so we don't have the same words sometimes. So what's paranoid?
Are we gonna spend the last 10 minutes of this podcast roasting a nigga?
Yes,
I'm about to spend my goal for the next 10 minutes is to talk about Angela Davis because her book, Race, Gender, and Class, or is it Race, Class?
Where is it?
It's on the shelf, yeah. Race,
I'm
gender,
gonna say it's race, gender, and class because a Black woman would definitely put gender before class.
Race, gender, class, yeah. That sounds like exactly what she did.
That seems like the hierarchy of like who gets fucked over.
But basically what she does in this book, where I was talking about
women, race, and class.
Women, race, and class. There we go. Women came first because women came first. In my religion, the first person God made with their own hands, because God is non-binary, was a woman, Nini Benini. But that's not y'all business, unless you Black.
That's another thing. I'm coming on motherfucking business.
My whole soul. So, but yeah, in this book, she basically talks about the actual intersections of.
Wait, can we say something real quick? He said we sound like Nazis and we didn't say like death to non-white people. So like, we don't sound like Nazis.
People love to treat Black people acting as Black people telling them that you're not gonna treat me like like I'm less than you, as saying you all deserve to die because that's the same if you're a racist.
Here's my thing. We didn't say that one race matters and everybody deserves to die like the Nazis did. We just said you specifically, Frank Lucas, if that is even your real name. We said you specifically. So take that to heart.
I didn't say you deserve to die. I said you don't deserve the life that you have. I said you don't deserve life.
You grew up in okay, but England.
You have the right to it, but did you earn it? Did you do anything positive with it? No, you're in the comment section, probably living in your mama's basement with your fucked up England teeth.
This nigga said, I'm from England.
First of all, the English were who came to America and got slaves. The English were also an active part of the slave trade.
Also,
that's all I have to say about that.
I don't give a fuck where you
from. The English were the slave trade.
Yes, anti-Blackness is all over the fucking world, period. Where's those books? I recommend Patricia Hill Collins' Bell Hooks. Somebody else say that next name so I don't say it wrong.
I think one of the things.
Spillers and Audre Lorde. Yes, read lots of Audre Lorde.
I said, if you don't like black people, yes.
If you don't like black people, you deserve to die, period.
Because black people are the only reason you're alive.
Period.
I'm just gonna sit up here and say,
That's like
if you're
saying,
racist,
if
you deserve to die. If
hate
you don't
your
like
mother, you
people based on
deserve
the
to
color of their
die.
skin, you deserve to die. You're talking the English language, you twat, because you ripped my language out of my throat when you ripped me out of my home. So again, hold my dick. Let's talk about how we can dismantle white supremacy most effectively. The first step is for white people to stay the hell out of our way.
It seems everybody's flocking to YouTube right now.
I mean, shit.
Oh, we're funny niggas.
I mean, you know, like it is what it is. I think the most effective way to fight white supremacy is to first acknowledge that it's on a systemic level, and then acknowledge that in order to get rid of something on a systemic level, you have to get rid of the system. If the system was built on slavery, the system will continue to subsist on slavery and depend on slavery in order to continue running. So we can't have a system that was built on slavery. We need a system that was built on liberation.
Okay, Frank Lucas, if your God don't love me, I'm okay with that.
Putting lipstick on like a bitch. First of all, you forgot to say bad bitch.
For God.
And
I
second
belong
of all,
to a lot of faiths, and in none of them did God. Somebody else speak for God.
Wait, can I just say?
God, tell me what
don't let this lipstick fool you. I have been in more fights than I can count. Would smash your jaw off my face. Bro, that's cute. That's hella fucking cute.
Where is this at?
That's hella fucking cute. I'm from one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Please don't try me. You UK niggas can't even own guns. And you're talking about you gonna do something to me.
Richmond niggas shoot you on the freeway.
I'm fucking wild. Hold on. Let me read this right. I would smash your jaw off your face, bruv. I'm sorry, it's just not here, right? I'm sorry, I'm not impressed.
It's like I've had guns pointed in my face and walked away.
Damn right.
The amount of fucks that I give about empty threats from people that are not black and not from the hood don't need a gun, you pussy. Obviously you do.
Well, you need hooked on phonics because your subject-verb agreement is not going well right now. I got this. So again, I think
hilarious. You're from England.
Talking about
they can't even speak English.
And you can't speak it.
Like, Lord have mercy.
I can run grammar circles around you and your whole family.
My students can run grammar circles around you and your entire family. The fact that I have children.
My 4-year-old nephew can form a better string.
I was like, I should just ban him. I was like, I'm having so much fun. I live for this shit.
Honestly,
I don't want him to shut up. He's making himself look damn stupid.
And people like you consistently prove the need for funding in our spaces. People like you are why we need to get paid, because like we're doing this talk, dropping all of this knowledge for free. Right.
Mate, I'm ruining your shitty show right now. Bro, we're having so much fun. Like, you do not understand.
Give me a chance to plug the Patreon a last time, and you're the perfect leeway. Because when I'm talking about the racists who can die, I'm talking about you, and you're here just showing us how real you are. You're here showing us that you are here showing other white people, because we don't need to know, that you ain't shit.
What was that last word you wrote? I'm sorry. I'm telling you, the English in the United States is slightly different from the English that y'all speak in the UK. So if I'm asking you what a word means, it means we do not have this in the United States. You need to get paid because you broke. I need to get paid.
No, I need to get paid
because people paid us today.
Yo, you do not understand. You do not understand how much donations we've gotten since the start of this. So like, while you're talking about how broke we are, we're getting richer and richer and richer.
People
So
like
you got
why
5
we got
people
another
watching.
$100
That's cute.
donation. People like you
Frank,
are
I
why
would
we
like to let you
continue
know
to
that
get
we are like live on like 5 different platforms. So like while you might see 5 people, we're seeing like a lot more. And also like you're one of those 5 people. And you know, every hater is just a fan in disguise.
Period.
We still getting them views.
Like it's just like
YouTube don't give a fuck if you like us or not.
You're still entertaining.
If you
them.
really want to fuck us over,
Like,
stop
someday
watching
I go
so we don't
somewhere
get that
else.
traction.
Hey Reggie,
Like,
it's 3 o'clock,
and
by the way.
I swear to God, if like the influx of people watching us on YouTube right now is because of white supremacists, y'all do realize you're just fueling us, right?
That's
The
what
more
I was
views
trying
that
to
we
say.
get,
Like,
the more
I
views
am
that we
here.
get, the more people that watch, the higher and higher and higher we go up on YouTube, and the more people will see us and the bigger platform that we have. So
And the
by
more
all
people
means,
pay us.
keep commenting,
The more people are
liking.
contributing to our community.
You know what?
Because he
While you're
doesn't
at it, you
know. I
might
don't
as
think
well
he really
subscribe since
understands
you're
what he's
here.
saying at this point.
Oh, you finally spelled something right. Cool.
Reggie, it is 3:01.
Fuck, you know what? Fuck it, I could be late. I'm glad. You got 4 people though. Your head
Do you not understand?
look that low like what
I
you
don't
scamming people?
understand your
I don't
sentence.
think you know how the
Okay.
nonprofit sector works. We fundraise.
Wait,
Speaking
but
of
you
which,
got
with our
4 people
Patreon,
though.
we are
Your head top
part of a
look good, man. I
501c3
think that nigga talking
nonprofit.
about your hair.
All of your donations are tax deductible.
Yes, you can donate. Somebody tell her stuff. I think
And
it's
also
part of
like,
Exactly.
thank you so much. Once again, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah, for
Thank
showing
you
the
again,
love.
Sarah.
Like, but yeah, like, thank you so much. And also thank you, Frank. Like, really, thank you. This conversation would not have been as fun without you. And your words and your energy. So you know, I don't know, stay mad and die.
Period. Stay mad and die while we glow up and get paid.
You literally tripled our viewership on YouTube in 30 minutes. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but thank you. Thank you, like, for giving us this platform with your completely disgusting racism. Not only did you expose yourself and your people, you gave us a platform to talk about us in ours and uplift us in ours. So you know, as the Pokemon say, it hurt itself in its confusion. I got to go and attend this other meeting. It has been wonderful having this conversation with y'all. Don't forget, next week we will be right back here next Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to talk about creating equitable spaces within artist communities. So yeah, that's been our conversation. We will see y'all next week.
All right, see y'all. Wait.
Are we offline?
If we're still live, our Cash App